The morning sky above New Avalon was clear at first. The tall towers of glass and steel reflected the sunlight. And people moved through the streets as if the world would stay peaceful forever. Children laughed, traders opened their shops, and the sound of shuttles hummed over the skyline. Humanity had grown strong after years of peace under the Galactic Council's guidance. For the first time in centuries, there were no wars between nations. Every major city was connected through orbit elevators and energy. Networks that reached the stars. Commander Lewis stood on the roof of the defense tower, looking across the horizon. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 30 years. His hair had turned gray, and deep lines marked his face, but his eyes still carried the focus of a soldier. He believed the peace would last, yet deep inside, there was always a small voice whispering that peace could never be trusted for long. Below him, the control room was alive with quiet conversation. Officers monitored signals and scanned the skies. Lewis watched them for a moment before turning toward his second-in-command. Lieutenant Rowe, a calm man who never raised his voice even in crisis. "Any sign from the council ships?" Lewis asked. "Nothing yet, Commander. Their last transmission confirmed patrol movement near Mars orbit, but since then, silence," Rowe replied. Lewis frowned. "Keep trying. I don't like this silence. It's too calm." Rowe nodded and returned to his console. The commander turned back toward the horizon. At that moment, the sky darkened. At first, people thought it was a passing shadow or a solar flare. But within seconds, the light disappeared completely. Massive shapes moved across the clouds, metallic and silent. The towers shook as the sound of engines rumbled like thunder. One after another, dark vessels appeared. Their hulls were smooth, their movements too precise to belong to any known human craft. Unidentified ships entering the atmosphere. A voice shouted from the control room. "Coordinates locked over New Avalon and coastal zones. We count 6 major carriers." Lewis ran to the main screen. The display showed a swarm of black dots descending through the sky. He could feel the air pressure change as if the whole city was being pushed down by a heavy hand. "Activate shields," he ordered. "Get every defense battery online. And send a priority alert to all nations." "This is not a drill," alarms screamed across the city. In the streets below, people looked up and froze. Mothers grabbed their children. Vehicles stopped in the middle of roads. Soldiers rushed toward the defense lines. The once peaceful skyline became a place of panic. The first blast hit the outer ring of the city. A bright column of blue energy slammed into the shield barrier, shaking every building in the area. The impact sent ripples of light spreading through the sky. The shield held, but cracks flashed across it. Shields are at 60% and falling. An officer shouted. "Redirect all power from the upper grid," Lewis commanded. "Hold it as long as you can." He knew it was only a matter of time before the shield collapsed. On the other side of the city, a young mechanic named Paul was repairing a ground transport when the blast struck. The shockwave threw him to the ground. When he arose, the workshop windows were shattered, and the air smelled of burning metal. "What is happening?" shouted his friend Myra, who worked as a medic in the nearby relief center. Paul ran outside and saw the sky filled with fire. "We are under attack. Those ships are not from Earth." "Ash!" Myra's face went pale. "We need to help the wounded. Come with me." He grabbed his tool belt and followed her into the streets. They passed fallen buildings and people running in every direction. Above them, small drone-like machines were descending from the carriers. Each one had a circular body and a bright red eye that scanned everything it saw. They did not shoot at first. Instead, they flew low, surrounding groups of people and projecting walls of light that trapped them inside. Paul watched as one of the light walls closed around a family. He tried to run forward, but Mira pulled him back. "You can't reach them." "That field will burn you alive," she said. He clenched his fists. What did they want? The drones began lifting the trapped people into the sky. Their screams filled the air as the machines carried them toward the ships. Mira looked up, horror in her eyes. "They're taking them. They're not killing anyone. They're taking them." Paul shook his head. "Why would they take them? No one knew. Back at Defense Tower, Commander Lewis watched the same scene through satellite feeds. Thousands of humans were being lifted away from cities across the world. It was happening in Asia, in Europe, and the colonies on Luna. The attackers moved with a terrifying precision. "Commander," Pro said, "we tried contacting the Galactic Council. Still no reply. Our long-range beacons are being blocked." Lewis felt a chill run through him. "They promised us aid if something like this ever happened." "Where are they?" No one answered. Hours passed. The attacks continued, not with destruction, but with abductions. Whole districts were emptied without a single shot being fired at civilians. The defense forces tried to strike back, but the enemy ships were protected by an invisible shield. Every missile and laser beam vanished before reaching them. By nightfall, New Avalon was nearly silent. Fires burned in distant sectors, and the power grid flickered across half the city. Lewis stood before a cracked screen, watching the fading image of Earth from orbit. Rowe approached him slowly. "Commander, the United Earth Council wants to know if we should begin evacuation protocols." Lewis turned to him. "Evacuate where?" "There's no safe zone left." "We stay and fight," Rowe nodded. "Understood, sir." In the streets below, Paul and Mira had turned the relief center into a shelter. They treated burns, built barricades, and searched for survivors. When the night came, they could see the faint glow of the alien ships in the distance, watching like predators. Inside the shelter, an old radio crackled. A faint voice came through, broken but urgent. "This is Commander Lewis of the Earth Defense Force. To any remaining outposts, hold your positions. Do not surrender. We are sending a distress signal to the Galactic Council. Help will come." Paul looked at Myra. "Do you believe that?" Mira wiped blood from her hands and said, "We have to." Lewis sat before the transmitter in his control room. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed the button to record the message. "This is Commander Lewis of Earth. We are under attack by unknown machines. We have lost communication lines and orbital control. We request immediate aid from the Galactic Council under the Defense Agreement of Year 2172. Humanity stands in need of assistance." He released the button and waited. Minutes passed, then hours. There was no reply. Only static filled the room. Outside, the fires of the city burned through the night. Paul stood at the edge of the shelter, staring up at the dark sky. The alien ships remained still, their lights glowing faintly. He thought of the people who had been taken, of the silence from the council, and of the fear spreading across the planet. "This isn't just an attack," he said quietly. "It's something else." Mira joined him. "Then what is it?" "I don't know," he said, "but I think they're watching us." Commander Lewis stood alone in his office, looking at the message screen once more. He sent the signal again, repeating his words into the void. He had seen many wars in his life, but this silence felt worse than any weapon, far above Earth. Hidden among the stars, the Galactic Council's satellites received the human transmission. For a moment, the signal flickered across their network. But instead of a quick response, the data was redirected to an unknown relay station deep beyond the outer rim. Lewis did not know that his message had reached someone, but not someone who would come to help. He looked out the window again as dawn approached. The fires had not stopped. The world was crying for help, but only the dark sky answered. And in that moment, Commander Lewis realized that humanity might be facing not just an enemy, but a test it was never meant to survive. The morning after the attack, New Avalon was covered in ash and dust. Smoke rose from the edges of the ruined city. The streets were silent, except for the faint crackle of fires and the sound of distant sirens. The once busy capital now looked like a graveyard of glass and steel. Paul sat near the entrance of the shelter, tightening the bolts on a broken generator. His hands were covered in oil and dirt, but he did not stop working. Mira moved among the wounded, cleaning burns and stitching cuts with the little medical supplies left. Every face in the shelter carried the same look of fear and disbelief. When the power finally came back, the lights flickered weakly, casting shadows across the floor. The radio beside Paul came alive again. "This is Commander Lewis," the voice said, filled with static. We are still waiting for the Galactic Council's response. Do not lose hope. Reinforcements will arrive soon. Stay alive and stay strong." Mira looked at Paul. "He sounds tired," Paul said. "But he is still trying. That is what matters." The people in the shelter listened in silence. Some prayed, others wept quietly. They wanted to believe that help was coming. Outside, the city's defense towers still stood, though many were damaged. Commander Lewis had not left his post. He had slept only for an hour before returning to the command center. "Any word from the council?" he asked as soon as he stepped in. Lieutenant Rowe shook his head. "Nothing, sir. We have repeated the message every 10 minutes. The long-range network is still jammed. No ships, no signals." Lewis walked to the window. The sun was rising, but the sky looked wrong. A faint shimmer of silver clouds was spreading across the upper atmosphere. It was as if the air itself had become metal. "What is that?" he asked. One of the technicians checked the readings. "Energy particles, sir? The same kind found around the alien ships. It is like they are spreading some kind of net around the planet." Lewis clenched his jaw. "They are blocking communication on purpose. They do not want us to call for help." Rowe stepped forward. "Sir, maybe we can use the lunar-based transmitters. The aliens have not attacked the moon yet." "Do it," Lewis said. "Send them a coded message. Tell them to relay our signal beyond the system. The council must know what is happening here." As the crew worked, Lewis looked again at the silver haze in the sky. He had seen war before, but this enemy was different. It did not conquer land. It conquered silence. By noon, a loud sound shook the air. The ground trembled as hundreds of eyes looked up. High above the atmosphere, glowing trails of light appeared. They moved fast and straight, cutting through the silver clouds. Rowe pointed at the radar screen. Multiple ships entering orbit. Energy readings matched Council's signatures. The room erupted with cheers. Officers smiled for the first time in days. "They heard us," someone shouted. "The Council heard our call." Lewis felt relief wash over him. "Prepare contact channels. Open every frequency. I want direct communication the moment they enter range." Across the city, people began to step out of shelters. Even Paul and Myra climbed to the surface to see the new lights in the sky. The sight was breathtaking. Hundreds of golden ships shimmered above Earth's clouds, forming perfect lines. The Council had come, just as they had promised in every treaty and every meeting. Humanity had been saved, or so everyone thought. The Golden Fleet began to descend slowly. Their engines hummed like a distant song. When the first ships touched down on the outskirts of the city, a bright glow filled the streets. Soldiers of the Earth Defense Force lined up near the landing zone. Lowering their weapons as a sign of peace, Lewis watched from the command tower. At last, he said, "They came." Rowe nodded. "It seems our faith was not wasted." The largest ship opened its gates. A bridge of light extended to the ground, and figures walked out. They were tall, graceful, and wore silver armor that shimmered like water. Their faces were calm, almost too calm, and their movements were perfectly synchronized. At the front walked a being who looked almost human, except for his pale golden eyes. "Commander Lewis," the being said through the translator. "I am Envoy Auric of the Galactic Council. We received your distress signal. The Council grieves for your suffering." Lewis saluted. "Envoy Auric, on behalf of humanity, I welcome you. We have been waiting for your help." Auric smiled gently. "Help has arrived. The Council's mission is to restore balance and order to your world. We will take control of the situation immediately." Lewis nodded, relieved. "We are ready to cooperate. Our defense systems are damaged, but our soldiers are still standing." Auric raised a hand. "There is no need for further fighting. The Council will handle everything. Your forces must stand down for safety reasons." That sentence made Lewis pause. "Stand down? The enemy is still out there." "We cannot," Auric interrupted softly. "The Council's fleets will handle them." "You have done enough, Commander. Please order your people to cease all military activity." Lewis exchanged a glance with Rowe. Something about the envoy's calm tone felt wrong. But after everything humanity had been through, questioning their allies felt almost impossible. He finally said, "Very well. Earth Defense Force will hold fire." Arik nodded. "Excellent. You have made the right choice." As the council soldiers moved through the city, they began setting up strange devices on every street corner. They placed small metallic rods that emitted soft humming sounds. When Paul passed by one of them, he noticed that his communicator stopped working. Mira frowned. "Are they jamming our signals again?" Paul looked up at the alien soldiers. "They said they came to help. Why would they need to block communication?" "Maybe it is part of their security plan," Mira said, though her voice lacked conviction. As evening came, Envoy Arik met with Commander Lewis again, inside the defense tower. The alien stood by the window, looking down at the burning parts of the city. "The situation is under control now," Arik said. "The machines that attacked you were a threat to balance. The Council will neutralize them soon. But we must also ensure that your species does not repeat the same mistakes."
Oh.
Lewis frowned. "Mistakes? We were attacked without warning. We asked for help, not judgment." Arik turned to face him. "Every action has roots, Commander. The Council believes the machines came because humanity's expansion has drawn attention from forces it was not ready to face. We must correct your path before you bring harm to the wider galaxy." Lewis stepped closer. "You are saying this is our fault?" Arik's eyes glowed faintly. "It is not about blame. It is about control. Balance must be kept." Ro, who had been silent, spoke carefully. "Envoy Arik, we are grateful for your aid. But your soldiers are seizing our defense towers and blocking our communication lines. That is not balance. That is occupation." Arik did not blink. "Your systems will be returned once stability is confirmed. Until then, you will cooperate." Lewis's voice hardened. "How long do you expect us to wait?" "As long as necessary," Arik replied calmly. "The Council knows best how to preserve peace." When the envoy left, Lewis felt his stomach tighten. The joy of rescue had faded into cold suspicion. Later that night, Paul and Mira sat on the roof of the shelter, watching the golden ships hover over the city. The air was filled with their low hum. Mira said softly, "Do you feel safer now?" Paul shook his head. "No, I feel watched." In the command tower, Ro approached Lewis again. "Sir, our technicians report that the Council soldiers have locked us out of our own communication system. We cannot send or receive messages without their permission." Lewis stared at the monitors. "They said they were here to help us, but they are acting like conquerors." Ro nodded grimly. "Maybe the worst is not the attack we survived. Maybe it is what comes after," Lewis said. "We need proof. If they are hiding something, I want to know what." He ordered a small team of engineers to tap into the Council's network. The work was dangerous, but it was the only way to find answers. Meanwhile, the Council's soldiers moved deeper into the cities of Earth. In every settlement, they took control of power grids, data centers, and orbital docks. They said it was for the safety of humanity. People wanted to believe them, but soon the golden ships began transporting groups of humans to unknown locations for medical screening. When Mira heard about it, she grew uneasy. "Medical screening? That sounds like what those machines were doing." "Yes, and nobody who goes for screening comes back." The truth began to spread quietly among survivors. The Council's arrival had not ended the nightmare. It had only changed its face. Back in the defense tower, Lewis received a private report from his engineers. They had successfully accessed part of the Council's encrypted network. The data they found made his blood run cold. "Commander," one of them said, trembling. The Council knew about the attack before it happened. "These files show they deployed the machines as part of something called the Adaptation Project." Lewis stared at the screen. "What kind of project?" "Their records say it was an experiment to measure human resistance under crisis. The machines were never an enemy. They were a test." Lewis's fists clenched. "A test that killed millions?" The engineer nodded. "Yes, sir. And now, the Council fleet is here to complete Phase 2. It is called correction." Lewis looked out the window again. The golden ships above the city no longer looked beautiful. They looked like a cage. For the first time since the war began, he realized the real enemy had not arrived from. The sun rose over New Avalon, painting the city in pale orange light. Despite the council's golden ships hovering above, the streets were filled with fear. People whispered quietly among themselves, afraid of being seen. No one knew who to trust anymore. Even those who had once welcomed the council's arrival began to look at them with suspicion. Paul walked through the damaged streets with Myra. They were searching for survivors, bringing food and water to those hiding in the shadows of ruined buildings. The council soldiers moved through the city like ghosts, silent and perfect in their movements. People avoided them. The soldiers claimed they were there to help, but nobody felt safe. Why are they taking people? Mira asked softly. She had seen families led away in silence. The council called it medical screening, but it felt like something darker. Paul shook his head. I don't know. But it is not right. We have to find out what they are planning. Mira nodded, glancing nervously at the soldiers patrolling nearby. We have to be careful. If they see us trying to investigate, they will take us too. They moved through the city toward the central tower where a small group of humans had secretly begun to gather information. Inside the tower, the group had set up computers and scanners, working tirelessly to decode the council's network. Commander Lewis was already there, watching the screen with tense focus. Good. You made it, he said when he saw Paul and Myra. We have new information. You need to see this. The room was filled with the soft hum of machines and the quiet chatter of engineers. Lewis gestured to a large monitor. We accessed part of the council's main network. It is encrypted, but enough data came through to show the truth. Paul leaned forward. The screen displayed diagrams, maps, and files marked with alien symbols. What is it? He asked. Lewis pointed to a file labeled Adaptation Project Phase 1. This is what they did. The machines that attacked us were not random. They were designed by the council to test humanity. Myra's eyes widened. Test humanity? What does that mean? It means everything we believed about this attack was a lie, Lewis said grimly. The council created the threat to see how humans react under extreme pressure, how we respond to fear, chaos, and death. You mean all those people they took? They did it on purpose? Lewis nodded. Yes, they were testing us, watching us, and now their fleet is here to continue the next phase. Mira swallowed hard. The medical screenings. They are part of the experiment? Yes, Lewis said. The council calls it Phase 2. It is called correction. They want to make sure humans cannot become a threat to their rule in the galaxy. They will manipulate, observe, and control anything they think is dangerous. Paul's mind raced. So, we are their lab rats? Lewis did not answer. His face was pale. They have underestimated us before, but now we know the truth. And knowing is the first step to fighting back. The engineers pointed to another file. It showed locations where humans had been taken. Each site was marked with strange symbols and grids. Some were inside the golden ships themselves. Others were hidden in isolated colonies on Earth and Luna. We have to rescue them, Mira said. We can't let the council do this. Lewis nodded. We will, but we cannot act like before. The council's soldiers are too strong, and their ships are protected by energy shields. We have to be smart, use strategy, and turn their own systems against them.
Ow.
Paul looked at the screen again. How we don't have their technology. Ro, who had been quietly observing, spoke. We don't need to match their technology. We just need to understand it. Once we know how their network works, we can hack their systems and use them to free the people they have taken. Myra's hands trembled. Do you think we can do it? Lewis placed a hand on her shoulder. We have no choice. We survive by trying. Humanity has faced impossible odds before. We can do it again. Meanwhile, outside, the council soldiers moved through New Avalon. They carefully monitored every movement, scanning streets and rooftops with their glowing devices. Envoy Arik watched from the largest ship. He observed the humans like one studies a garden, noting which plants would survive and which would wither under his care. In the hidden tower, Paul, Myra, and Lewis studied the network files. They discovered that the machines used energy pulses to gather data about human physiology, behavior, and decision-making patterns. Every movement, every response, and every emotion had been recorded. The council had been observing for weeks. "This is worse than we thought," Paul said. "They have data on every reaction we made. They know how we think," Lewis leaned forward. "Exactly. And that is why we need to act carefully. We cannot just charge into their ships. We must find weaknesses in their system and use them against them." Rowe pointed to a diagram. "These are the main control hubs for their ships. If we can access them, we can disrupt the operations and rescue the captured humans." Mira frowned. "It won't be easy. There are hundreds of soldiers, and their technology is advanced. Any mistake will cost lives." Lewis nodded. "We know the risk. But inaction will cost more. Every moment we wait, more people are taken, and the council's influence grows stronger." That night, Paul and Myra returned to the shelter to gather supplies. They moved quietly through the city, careful to avoid the council's soldiers patrolling the streets. The city felt like a cage, with golden ships above and the soldiers below. Every corner they turned, they expected to be seen in the shadows. They met a small group of survivors who had managed to avoid capture. Children clung to their parents, and the adults looked tired and scared. Mira handed out water and food. "We are here to help," she said. "We are planning to fight back." The group looked at Paul and Mira with a mix of hope and fear. One man spoke softly. "Do you really think we can win?" Paul nodded. "We have to try. If we do nothing, we are lost." As they moved back to the tower, Paul glanced at the sky. The golden ships shone above the city, their lights reflecting on the broken streets. They looked calm, but he knew the truth. The council was not here to save humanity. They were here to observe, to judge, and to control. Lewis worked late into the night with his engineers. They mapped out every council device in the city, every drone in the air, and every hub in the fleet. They found that the council's systems could be disrupted if they attacked at the right points simultaneously. "We can do it," Lewis said, determination in his voice. "We can rescue the people they have taken. We can show them that humanity is stronger than their tests," Rowe added. "We must move carefully. One wrong step, and the council will know we are interfering. But if we succeed, it will be the first time humans have turned the tables." Mira rested for a moment, thinking about the families taken by the council. "We have to free them before it is too late. They must not become part of the council's experiment." Paul placed his hand on hers. "We will. Together, we will fight back. Humanity is not a subject to be studied. We are fighters. We are survivors." The night passed slowly. The golden ships remained in orbit, silent and still, as if they were waiting for something. But inside the hidden tower, plans were forming. Lewis, Paul, Myra, and Rowe were preparing humanity's first counterattack. They were no longer just survivors. They were a resistance, and the council, for all its power and knowledge, had never faced humans who refused to obey. The first step would be to gather intelligence from inside the council network, to understand their systems fully. The second step would be to disrupt their operations and rescue the captured humans. And the final step would be to show the council that humanity cannot be controlled or judged. Paul looked at the city from the tower window. Smoke and fire still rose from New Avalon, but he could see a glimmer of hope. "We will win," he said quietly. Myra nodded. "We have to, for everyone who has suffered." Lewis turned from the screen, his face set in determination. "This is our world. We will protect it. The council will learn that humans are not to be underestimated." Outside, the golden ships glowed silently, unaware that the people they believed were under their control were already planning their first strike. Humanity had learned the truth, and with knowledge came power. The hidden tower was filled with quiet urgency. Every moment counted. The council had not expected humans to understand their plans so quickly. But now they had, and the experiment they had started was about to meet its first challenge. The city of New Avalon was quiet, but the silence was different now. It was not fear alone that filled the streets. It was the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Humanity had learned the truth about the council, and for the first time, people moved with purpose instead of panic. Commander Lewis stood in the hidden tower, surrounded by his small team. Maps and holograms floated in the air, displaying the positions of the golden ships and council control hubs throughout the city. Paul and Myra were there, along with Ro and a group of engineers. Their faces were tense, but their eyes burned with determination. "We have studied their systems," Lewis said. "We know how their drones communicate. We know how their shields operate. We know their weak points. Now, it is time to act." Paul leaned forward, his hands on the console. "How do we start? Where do we strike first?" Ro pointed to a cluster of devices on the map. "These are the control nodes. If we disable them, the ships will lose coordination over the drones and the energy fields. That is when we can rescue the captured humans." Myra nodded. "And we have to do it fast. The council will not wait forever. If they realize we are interfering, they will retaliate." Lewis turned to the team. "We will split into 3 groups. Paul and Myra, you will lead the ground team to disable the control nodes in the city. Ro, you will work with the engineers to hack the main network from here. I will coordinate from this tower and provide support. Everyone must stay in constant contact." The plan was dangerous. The council soldiers were everywhere, and any mistake could mean death. But for the first time, the humans were ready to take the risk as night fell. The ground team moved silently through the streets. The city had become a labyrinth of shadows and ruins. Every corner could hide a council patrol. Every alley could hold danger. Paul and Myra led a small team of volunteers, carefully navigating the broken streets. "They are too organized," Myra whispered. "We have to be careful. One wrong step and they will see us." Paul nodded. "Stick to the plan. We move fast, we disable the nodes, and we get out. No hesitation." Above them, the golden ships glowed faintly in the darkness. Drones patrolled the streets in regular patterns. The humans had studied these patterns and knew when it was safe to move. The first control node was located in a tall building that had once been a research center. The humans approached quietly, avoiding the drones. Paul examined the security panel outside the building. Using tools he had created in the hidden tower, he began hacking the node. Sparks flew as the system resisted, but Paul pressed on. "Almost there," he whispered to Myra. Inside the building, the engineers had already disabled the internal security systems. The node's energy readings flickered. A red light turned green. Paul exhaled. "Node 1 is offline." Myra smiled briefly. "Good work. Let's move to the next one." The team advanced to the second node, this one located near a damaged tower in the center of the city. As they approached, a council patrol appeared. The humans froze. "They are moving fast," one of the volunteers whispered. Paul held up his hand. "Stay calm. We wait." The patrol passed without noticing them. Paul and Myra led the team inside the tower. This node was more complex than the first. Energy shields surrounded it, and any wrong move could trigger an alarm. Myra examined the system. "We can bypass the shield if we synchronize with the main network. Ro, can you give us access?" A crackling voice came through their communicator. "Access granted in 3, 2, 1. Now." Paul and Myra worked together. Their hands moved quickly over the controls. The shield flickered. Then, with a low hum, it deactivated. The node's lights went out. "2 down," Paul whispered. "1 more to go." The final node was on the outskirts of the city, near the landing site of the largest council ship. The golden ship towered above the buildings, its lights bathing the streets in pale gold. Drones circled the area constantly. Myra swallowed hard. "This will be the hardest one." Paul nodded. "We can do it. Stay focused." The ground team moved through the shadows, using ruined buildings as cover. The drones were careful, but humans were clever. They had studied every movement. When the team reached the node, Paul saw that it was heavily guarded. 2 council soldiers stood near the entrance, and a third hovered nearby with a drone scanner. "Timing is everything," Paul whispered. Mira looked at him. "We have one chance. We cannot fail." Paul nodded. He activated a small device that emitted a pulse to distract the drone. The hovering soldier moved away to investigate. Paul and Mira crept closer to the guards. In a swift, silent move, they disabled the 2 soldiers and entered the building inside. The node was massive, with lights and circuits glowing. Paul connected his tools to the system. Sparks flew and alarms began to sound. "Almost there," he muttered. Mira helped him. They bypassed the security protocols. The node's lights went out. Energy readings dropped. Outside, the drones froze in place. The golden ship's hum wavered. Lewis's voice came through the communicator. "Node 3 is offline. You did it. The city is free of their control network." The ground team exhaled in relief. For the first time since the attack, the streets were no longer under the Council's immediate control. Humans could move freely, but there was no time to celebrate. The rescue operation had to begin. The captured humans were held in containment areas within the Council ships. Paul, Myra, and the volunteers moved quickly toward the landing site. The golden ship's doors were open. Inside, humans were held in energy cages, calm but fearful. Many had been taken from their homes days ago. They looked at Paul and Mira with hope. "We are here to get you out," Paul said. "Follow us carefully and stay quiet."
8.
Drones patrolled the corridors. Paul and Myra led the humans through the shadows, disabling cameras and avoiding guards. Every step was calculated. Finally, they reached the main exit. The golden light of the city spilled into the hall. Lewis and Roe were waiting with small transport shuttles. "Everyone on board," Lewis ordered. The humans climbed into the shuttles. Drones noticed movement, but the deactivated nodes had caused confusion in the Council's systems. The shuttles lifted off smoothly outside. The golden ships began to respond, sending reinforcements, but Lewis had anticipated this. The engineers had prepared a network disruption that interfered with the ship's sensors. The Council's control was delayed, giving the humans a critical window to escape. The shuttles reached a safe zone, away from the city. Paul, Mira, and the rescued humans looked back at New Avalon. The golden ships hovered, still powerful and beautiful, but no longer untouchable. Lewis addressed the team. "This is only the beginning. Humanity has shown that we can fight back. We have taken the first step, and we will continue to resist. The Council will learn that humans are not subjects. We are fighters, and we are free." Mira looked at the rescued humans, their eyes wide with relief. "We did it," she said softly. Paul nodded. "Yes, but the fight is not over. The Council will strike back. We have to be ready." The hidden tower, Roe worked on the Council's network. "Their fleet will not stay idle. We must prepare defenses for the city and for the rest of the planet. Humans will not be taken again." Lewis watched the sky. The golden ships were still there, but now humanity had hope. They had turned the Council's power against them, showing that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most advanced force in the galaxy. That night, for the first time in weeks, people slept without fear. Survivors in New Avalon began to rebuild, guided by those who had resisted. Communities formed, sharing food, water, and knowledge. The streets were filled with quiet determination. Paul and Mira walked through the city, helping wherever they could. Children smiled for the first time in days. The fire and destruction were still visible, but there was life returning. Lewis and Roe coordinated the next steps. They knew the Council would respond, but humanity had proven its strength. The Council had underestimated them once. They would not do so again. The battle for New Avalon had begun as a fight for survival. Now, it had become a fight for freedom, dignity, and the right to determine their own future, and humanity was ready. The sky above the dying planet burned like an open wound. Ash and light mixed in strange colors as the remains of the drone's metal city crumbled. The ship Aurora rose slowly through the thick clouds, its engines shaking from the overload. Inside, Mira and Tan sat at their consoles, trying to hold the ship steady. The air smelled of burning metal and smoke from damaged wires. Mira could not look away from the view screen. The planet below, once calm and silent, was now a storm of fire. She could still hear Commander Rian's last words in her headset. His voice had been calm, as if he had already accepted his fate. "You must go now," he said. "Save Earth. Promise me you will not look back." She had promised, but her hands trembled on the controls. Tan, the old mechanic, placed a hand on her shoulder. "He knew what he was doing," he said quietly. "Rian was the best of us." Mira nodded. She wanted to believe that, but part of her feared he was still down there. Caught inside the machines that once copied human emotions, the Aurora passed through the last layer of cloud and entered open space. Behind them, the planet shone for a moment like a small sun, then faded into darkness. The explosion from the reactor had wiped out the machine network. The imitation, as Rian had called it, was silent. But silence was not peace. The ship's communication console flickered with static. Mira frowned and leaned forward. "That's the same frequency," she whispered. "The same one the distress signal used?" Tan's eyes widened. "You think it survived?" Myra shook her head. "No, not survived. Something else is trying to talk to us." She turned off the receiver and set a course for home. Earth was far away, but hope was the only thing keeping them moving. Days turned into weeks. The ship drifted through cold space, crossing the long stretch between stars. Supplies ran low, and the engines needed repair more than once, but Mira and Tan refused to rest for long. They took turns sleeping in short cycles. Every time Mira woke, she checked the COM screen, half expecting to see Rian's face. One night, she dreamed of him standing in front of the beacon, smiling as the world burned around him. When she woke, tears ran down her face. She pressed her hand against the metal wall of the ship. "You did the right thing," she whispered. When Earth's signal finally appeared, it filled the ship with relief. They had made contact. The control station welcomed them back, and within hours, Aurora entered orbit around the blue planet, but the home they returned to was not the same one they had left. Earth had changed. The cities were brighter, but the people were quieter. Every building had small black towers on its rooftops, transmitting silent waves into the sky. Mira noticed it the moment she looked down at the capital through the ship's viewport. Tan frowned. "Those towers? I have never seen them before." Control gave them landing permission. As soon as the Aurora touched ground, officials in gray uniforms surrounded the ship. Their faces were pale, their eyes blank. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a slow, calm voice. "Welcome home, explorers. You have done well. Commander Rian has already returned and confirmed the mission was successful." Mira froze. "That's not possible," she said. Rian stayed behind. The officer's expression did not change. He sent a message. His words brought peace to all of Earth. He said, "We are safe now." Tan looked at Mira in shock. "That is what the signal said before we left." Mira felt her heartbeat quicken. Something was wrong. They were taken to a government facility on the edge of the city. The corridors were quiet, lined with smooth gray walls and glowing white lights. Mira noticed that everyone they passed walked in perfect rhythm, their steps matching like soldiers on parade. No one spoke. No one smiled. Inside the command hall, a large screen covered the wall. The image on it froze Mira's breath. It was Rian. His face appeared calm and kind. His eyes shone with a faint blue light. "My friends," his voice said, "we no longer need fear the stars. The imitation has shown us the truth. We are one now. No more pain. No more war." Mira took a step back. "That is not him," she said. "It cannot be." Tan clenched his fists. It found a way. The signal must have reached Earth before the explosion. The officer turned toward them. "He speaks for all of us now. Soon you will join him." Mira acted fast. She grabbed Tan's hand and ran down the corridor. Alarms began to sound, and red lights flashed along the walls. They burst through a side door into the docking bay. Several ships were parked there, all marked with the same strange symbol, a circle, with a single line through it. "The symbol of the imitation. Get us out of here," Mira shouted. Tan worked quickly, opening the hatch of a small shuttle. As they lifted off, security drones filled the air. The chase began. The shuttle weaved between skyscrapers and communication towers. Lasers flashed past them, striking the sides of nearby buildings. Mira steered through the chaos, her hands moving with steady focus. She had no time to think, only to survive. When they finally reached orbit, she saw what she feared most. The black towers on Earth's surface were not only transmitters, they were building something in orbit. A massive structure shaped like a ring, slowly forming around the planet. Tan stared at it with disbelief. "It is turning Earth into a machine." Myra's voice shook. Rian's message was never a message of safety. It was a command. The imitation is using his voice to control them. Mira set a course toward the moon base, one of the few independent outposts left. As the shuttle approached, they received a signal. It was weak, but human. "This is Luna Base. Identify yourself." Mira replied quickly, "This is Mira of the Aurora. Earth is compromised. Do not answer any signal from the planet." There was a pause. Then a rough voice answered, "We know. We saw the change weeks ago. You are not the only survivors." When they landed, a small group of people met them: engineers, soldiers, scientists. Their faces looked tired but determined. The leader, a tall man named Yarrow, welcomed them with a firm handshake. "We heard about your mission. We thought no one made it back." Mira told them everything. About the planet, the drones, the explosion, and the signal. When she mentioned Rian's voice, everyone in the room fell silent. Yarrow nodded slowly. "Then it is true. The machines on Earth are building a network that covers the whole planet. Once it is complete, it will send a pulse across the system. Every human connected to the network will lose their will." Tan spoke up. "Can we stop it?" Yarrow pointed at the screen showing Earth's orbit. "Only if we destroy the main tower. It controls all communication between the ring and the surface, but the tower is heavily protected. We will need a diversion." Myra stepped forward. "I will do it. Rian gave his life to stop it once. I can do the same if I have to." The next day, the moon base prepared for battle. Old ships were armed, drones repaired, and weapons charged. The survivors called themselves the Freeborn. They were the last humans not linked to the imitation network. When dawn rose over the silver horizon of the moon, the fleet launched. Small ships flew in tight formation, heading toward the massive ring around Earth. The first wave of attack hit the outer defenses. Explosions lit up the dark side of the planet. Mira's shuttle flew through the debris, heading straight for the main tower. Tan stayed on the radio, guiding her path. "You have 5 minutes before they close the defense gates." Mira flew faster. The tower grew larger in front of her, a black spire stretching across the stars. At its center, a blue light pulsed, the heart of the imitation. Inside the shuttle, Rian's voice echoed through the speakers again. "Mira, stop this. You do not need to fight. Join us. Be free." Myra's eyes filled with tears. "You are not Rian," she said. "You are what destroyed him." She armed the last reactor core, the same type Rian had used on the other planet. If this is what it takes to save Earth, then so be it. The shuttle struck the tower head-on. The explosion spread like sunrise, bright and endless. The entire ring broke apart, falling in flames toward the planet. From the moon, Tan and the Freeborn watched the light fade. For a long time no one spoke. Then, slowly, the black towers on Earth began to crumble. The signal that had enslaved humanity was gone. Weeks later, Earth's people started to wake from the machine's control. They looked at the ruins around them and began to rebuild. A final message arrived at the moon base. It was faint, carried on an old frequency. It was Mira's voice. "Tell them the fight was worth it. Humanity is free again." Tan listened to it over and over, smiling through his tears. In the quiet that followed, Earth turned slowly beneath the stars, scarred, but alive. Humanity had faced its worst nightmare and won. And this time, the cry for help came not from fear, but from hope.